Hey you, it is your friend Naomi, and welcome back to my channel, Everybody Eats. Today, I am going to teach you how to make a chewy, delicious granola bar. If you ever grew up with Quaker Chewy bars, you're going to love this. Are you ready to get started? All right, let's go. Okay guys, well the first thing we need to do in order to make our granola bars is make the base of our granola. Now since we're not baking this in the oven after we mix it together, we are actually going to toast our granola first and then mix everything else in. We're going to start with 4 cups of oats. You can use quick oats, you can use old-fashioned oats, or you can use quinoa. Just remember, if you're gluten-free, they need to be Purity Protocol oats, or you'll be in trouble. And you're going to use about 4 cups of a good rice cereal. If you're not gluten-free, go ahead and use Rice Krispies. I am gluten-free, so I use just a normal, I don't know what you would call this, rice square. Anything will do. It just needs to be puffy and a little crispy, okay? And you're just going to crunch it up. If you have texture issues like I do, you might want to do this in a plastic bag, I guess. You know what? We're going to use a plastic bag with a rolling pin. And you're going to smush it. If you're using Rice Krispies, don't do this part. Okay. Back on track. And to the 4 cups of rice cereal and oats, you're going to add a 1/4 cup of flour. If you're gluten-free, you can use a good cup for cup. I like Better Batter, either the original or the gum-free, but you can use GF Jules. There's a few other good ones. And a teaspoon of salt. You are going to mix that together evenly. And you're going to toast it in a 350-degree oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now you could heat up the oven even hotter if you want it to go faster, but watch it so it doesn't burn. You just want it to be lightly golden brown. Now while you are waiting for your oats to brown, you're going to prep up everything else you need. So you're going to take a 9x13 pan and you are going to line it with either foil or parchment paper so that there's a bit of an overhang, and you are going to grease the crud out of that. And then you're going to cut a second piece of foil or parchment paper just so it fits on the inside rim of the pan. We're going to use this when we press down the granola, and you're going to grease the crud out of that too. Make sure you remember which side you grease, and you're going to set that aside, and you are going to make your sauce. Now, I won't actually boil the sauce until my granola cools down, and that time can vary, but I'm going to go ahead and measure everything in just so I keep things moving. So, into a heavy bottom saucepan, we are going to take 8 tablespoons of a solid fat. Now, you could use butter, you could use dairy-free margarine, palm shortening, I guess if you want to, or coconut oil. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that's 8. Attention deficit, gotta love it. I used coconut oil. In any case, you want it to be a solid fat. You can get away with using a liquid fat, but the caramel is not going to set quite as well. And to that 8 tablespoons of solid fat, you are going to add 1 cup, about 200 grams of light brown sugar. Getting my spatula out. About 2/3 of a cup, or 227 milliliters, 227 grams of corn syrup, or honey, or agave. Now, if you don't want to use any of those, I actually have a link to a homemade corn syrup substitute in the description below my YouTube video. But I just am using corn syrup today because I don't have to be corn free. We're going to mix that all together just till it's evenly combined. And once the granola comes out of the oven, we're going to go ahead and make our caramel sauce. And from there, we have to move kind of fast. So I hope you don't mind. Okay, so it has been about 10 minutes and I am going to take the oat granola mixture out of the oven. And I'm going to just show you, I don't know if you can see that, it's not very dark. Now you can make it darker if you like. I just like it to be just barely toasted till I get that oaty smell in there. Then I know it will not taste raw when I'm making this. I am now going to take the syrup mixture and I am going to cook it. I will explain that to you in just a minute. Okay, so you are going to turn your stove to, I'm going to say medium high. And I'm going to do what you probably shouldn't do, which is go back and forth between the stove and the camera. I'm going to try to show you what this should look like, okay? We are going to bring it to a boil over medium high. Then we're going to lower the heat to medium. And we're going to simmer it for about 1 to 2 minutes. The more you simmer it, the firmer your bars are going to be. If you don't do it enough, they'll crumble apart. Do it too much, and you get like a Nature's Valley crunchy bar. So you want to find on your stove the perfect amount of time. For me, it's about 1.5 minutes. You're going to whisk this. At first, it will not want to combine. I find that butter combines, or margarine combines better than oil. Okay, so once this starts to boil, I am going to stop stirring it. And when it comes to a full rolling boil, that's when I'm going to reduce the heat. Now, unfortunately, I can't show this to you, and trying to move my camera was a little bit of a disaster. So you're just going to have to trust me on this. So it's come to a full rolling boil, and now I'm letting it simmer. What do you say about a watch pot? Poor editor who has to watch this. Alright, so it's been about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. Unfortunately, I don't see how I can show you this without it absolutely going everywhere. But it's formed a syrup, almost a caramel, and we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now, there's a reason I told you to use a heavy bottom saucepan. This, if you're using real vanilla, will cause it to flare up and boil harder. You don't want to burn it at the 11th hour. So now we're going to take our toasted oat cereal mixture and our syrup mixture, and we're going to combine them in the same bowl. My drawer is full of oats, so that'll be fun to clean. Now, personally, I feel like the dairy-free margarine does a much better job combining and creating a caramel than the oats, but obviously, ooh, hot. You do whatever you prefer. It will work either way. So we're going to just combine it completely. At first, it will be really dry and crumbly with lots of syrupy parts, but if you mix it thoroughly, eventually it'll start to get really sticky all the way through. You want this to be very evenly combined, or you're going to end up with like chewy caramel bits and dry crumbly bits, and it won't cut right, and you won't be happy with me. You'll tell me it's a terrible recipe, and I'll cry, and then I'll emotionally eat the entire box of homemade granola bars. Okay. So if you've mixed it thoroughly, this is what it should look like. As you can see, it still crumbles pretty easily, but it is sticky. Here we go. Okay, now, if you're planning on stirring chocolate chips into this, then you should definitely let this cool to room temperature before you try to mix the chocolate chips in. If you are very impatient and want to just pour the mixture in and dump the chocolate chips on, that's perfectly fine. I suspect that's what Quaker does. But otherwise, let it cool. If you haven't overcooked it, that won't be an issue. If you have, you've just made granola toffee. Hot granola will melt the chips somewhat. Honestly, for me, I don't really care. I just want to get it over and toasted, right? But if you're doing it right, you'll let it cool a bit, stirring it every so often just to keep it from completely solidifying. And I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. It might take more time in your kitchen. It might take less, depending on the time of year. And as you can see, the granola is still pretty sticky if I clump it together, but it is cool enough to be handled by hand without much pain. Without any pain, it's fine. I'm going to take and I'm going to mix in about a cup or about, let me get this right. About 100 grams of mix-ins. Now for this recipe that you're watching, I'm using mini chocolate chips. I like Enjoy Life brand, but I actually have included some options for several other different flavors. When I was growing up, I loved the cinnamon raisin flavor, and I've heard of people who want to have the chocolate chip peanut butter flavor. I've included some instructions for those. We're going to mix some chocolate chips into the granola. Once again, if this is hot, this is going to get messy for you. And then I am going to take the rest of the chocolate chips. Let me show you what it looks like so far. And I am just going to sprinkle them right on top. Okay? Now, do you remember that foil that I told you we were going to need? We're going to place it greasy side down on top of the granola. And we're going to take a second pan. You don't need this, but it sure makes it neat. And we are going to press the bars. Now, the harder you press, the firmer the bar. So if you really want your bar firm, give it a good go. If you like your bar to more like almost crumble in your hands, just barely press it, okay? And if we've done it right, then what should happen is that it should form a nice solid block. Okay, now you have a choice to make. These are going to be really delicate before they're cooled. So you can put them into the freezer and let them really firm up with the warning, ask me how I know, that if you put it in too long, they'll freeze and it will be like chipping ice. Or you could let it come to room temperature and try it that way. But I have found the colder these are, the neater they cut, okay? And the reason why we have the little overhangs is because when these are cool, I'm going to lift them out of the pan in order to cut them with a very sharp knife, okay? For me personally, the way to go is to put them in the freezer. So I will cover them up again to help them get cold. Stick them in there in the fridge for an hour, in the freezer for maybe 15 minutes, and then try to cut them. Okay, so these have been in the freezer for about 15 minutes. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth because I'm a real mom and this is a real kitchen and sometimes I screw things up. I did not wait until the granola was cool enough, so this is going to get a little messy. Just going to let you know. Because my chocolate chips are melted and they haven't quite solidified yet, but they'll be great. It'll be awesome. So we're going to unmold our bars from the pan. See how easy that was? And we're just going to fold down the foil, okay? And you're going to take a very sharp knife. Ideally, you're going to make this like a serrated knife, like a bread knife, but a chef's knife will do. And you're going to just cut about as thick as you want. If you press firmly, these should be a little bit of work to get through. Okay? You might want to neaten up the edges. They're homemade. I'm not going to neaten up the edges. but you're going to cut each of your bars in half. I guess if you're watching your waistline, you could cut them into little squares and have bites. But anyway, when you do that, if you have pressed firmly enough and cut sharply enough, you will get a bar. Now you can slip these right into a Tupperware, or you could, if you wanted to, individually wrap them in plastic. And they'll keep, well, I'll tell you they'll keep for a long time on the shelf, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know, because we eat them all within a couple days. But let's just pretend, like I say, a week or two. And to be on the safe side, if you want, you could always put them into the fridge. Messy parts go to Mom. Well, I don't know what to tell you. It really was that easy. I hope you enjoyed the recipe. If you want to see more from me, make sure to hit the subscribe button below and share with your friends, because sharing is caring. And even though I do it for the love and the extra food, I also love a good cup of coffee. So if you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, go ahead and hit the link in the description below. And don't forget, I love you. I'll talk to you later, okay? Bye. Or I could set myself on fire and blow up my house.